Shatkins, how are you? It's so happy to see you. So happy to see you. Welcome to our. I did all the design myself. You should know. it's. I remember last year actually. We had a brief period of time, but I think they went and upped their game this year. I think it's more festive than ever. All right. Good, that's good. Ooh, Jackie Berg, how you doing? Good to see you. I thought this time of year you're out west. Well, lucky for us then. You know, West Coast will miss you, I'm sure, but yeah, it's nice to have you.
Wow. Good to see you.
Very nice to have you. Okay, so Kira, let's get you connected in here.
Yep. And I think they're going to go to picnic as well.
Yes, I will do that. But one, I think I told you this, but one thing about these always is make sure that you never push in or plug in or take out, especially.
Oh yeah, what's up?
Yeah, otherwise you will have some issues. Let's just see if we can hear you okay, or we'll get you out the door.
How we doing? What was that? Housemate's doing well. We're a little cramped, but I think we'll make it work out. Thank you. Fair.
Touche, Ron. Absolutely right. Multiplies.
Plenty of time for that yet.
Very good. Okay, good Shabbos, everyone. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I think our friends watching from home, if I remember correctly, can only see the very bottom of the wreath, so it's something of a mystery to them.
What wreath?
Exactly. But we're well adorned. Smells nice in here, though, for sure. That's very good. Well, it's great to see you, Cantor Kevin. I hope you had a good week.
Absolutely.
Good. We're very excited to be back here.
Last full week of classes.
Last full week of classes.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, he looks very calm, very collected. You know, usually for me, the last week of classes did not look that calm. So kudos to you, my friends.
Give me a week. We'll see.
Very good. I also just want to say on a personal level, it's my son Emmett's second birthday today, so it's a very sweet thing. Anybody wants to see pictures afterwards, I got pictures, lots of pictures, but he's a sweet little guy, so happy birthday to Emmett on the off chance that he's watching. And I think, we've started to get back to candle lighting if anybody would like to do the candle lighting tonight. June, I don't know if you feel up for it. If you want to, it'd be great. Okay, so why don't you come on up. June Shatkin's going to light and bless our Shabbat candles this evening. We're on page 120. I'll tell you what, June, if you'd like, you can come over here and do the blessing, and I'll do the finicky part with the candles, if that's helpful.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehabadir shel Shabbat.
Amen.
I'm sorry I didn't adjust the mic down, but you did great. You did absolutely great. Michael's very proud of you, I'm sure. And it's good. We're slowly getting back to some of our traditions, which is lovely. So, with our candles lit and with Shabbat in our hearts, we're going to turn now to page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together at the very top of the page. Again, page 130.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Naria letzor yishenu, kad mafana b'to שירות נביע לו. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני.
We'll turn now to page 131, Shiru Ladonai, which is in the Hebrew just in the middle of the page.
שירו לאדוני, שירו שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני, שירו שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, מסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, מסרו מיום ליום ישועתו.
We'll turn now to page 132, Or Zarua, which is at the very bottom of the page, again, page 132.
Or Zarua, LaTzadik, ולשרי לב שמחה. Or Zarua, LaTzadik, ולשרי לב שמחה. Or Zarua, LaTzadik, ולשרי לב שמחה. ולשרי לב שמחה. Or Zarua, LaTzadik, ולשרי לב שמחה. ולשרי לב שמחה. יאי לי לי
We'll turn now to page 134, Zamru Ladonai, at the very top of the page.
זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור בקול זמרה, בחצוצרות בקול שופר. הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושבי בה. נהרות ימחאו כף יחד, הרים ירננו. לפני אדוני קיווה, לשפוט הארץ, לשפוט תבל בצדק, ועמים במישרים. ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושבי בה. נהרות ימחאו כף יחד, הרים ירננו.
We'll turn now to page 135, at the bottom of the page, again, page 135, Romamu.
רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר
להר קודשו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממות כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממות רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו להר קודשו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו להר קודשו.
We'll turn now to page 138 for L'cha Dodi. A reminder, we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs, and for the final paragraph, we'll rise in body or in spirit and face towards the rear of the room that we entered through.
Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad Ishmiyanu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad V'shemur tiferet v'litila Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Mekor haberacha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat chila Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Hitoreri ki va'oreh kumi ori Uri shir daberi Kvod Adonai alayich nigla Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam b'simcha u'b'tzola Toch emunei amesegula Boi chala Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala yaranai bnei Shabbat nekabela
Please be seated. We're now on page 140, Tzadika Tamar, where it indents in the Hebrew just in the middle of the page.
דיקתה מר יפרח כארז בלבנון יזכה שתולי בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עניינון בשיבה דשנים ורנים יהיו להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולתה בו.
We'll turn now to page 144 and we'll rise in body or spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba ve'al mahadivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon ub'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'galaha ובזמן קריב והימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ליעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה בנחמתה, תמירן בהמה, ואמרו Amen. Remain standing in body or spirit as we turn to page 146 for the Baruch. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. We'll turn now to page 148, and we'll read together in English at the bottom of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב הרבים.
We'll turn now to page 150 and we'll read together in English at the bottom of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, והם נגע יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please join us on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to Michamocha on page 158.
מי כמוך בעלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי, אנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם לעולם ועד. ידעי די ידעי די ידעי די די ידעי די ידעי די ידעי די די ידעי די ידעי די ידעי די די ידעי די די. ונאמר כיבדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Let's read together on the top of page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu on the top of page 160.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, שלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך.
We'll turn now to page 162 at the very top of the page for Shem. V'shameru v'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם עיני ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת שבת ויהי נפש. I invite us now to rise in body or in spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164, and then from that point continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace, and when you're finished, if you're standing at the end, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftachu piyai tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
We'll turn now to page 371 as we offer our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. Tonight we're thinking of Bensi Tepper, Allison Luckman, Malka Bat Chaya Sura, Michael Klinghoffer, Amy Cass, Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Leah Bat Naomi, Gedalia Ben Sylvia, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sivia Devora Bat Francis, Muriel Hirsch, Michelle Sawicki, Francis Kirschman, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Rose Spicer, Barbara Kushner, David Kyle Klotman, Lorraine Davis, Michael Ben Hananya, Devorah Batsima, Rebecca Snyder, Jeffrey Miller, Shelley Lyman, Deborah Block-Kroll, Sylvia Orn, Stanley Rappaport, Karen Layton, Debbie Bookvar, Carol Javna, and Lori Nissenson. In addition to the names that we just read aloud, if there's anyone with us here this evening that would like to share additional names, we'll start on this side of the room and shift over here. And we'll join together with the cantor on page 371 as we sing our Mishaberach in the middle of the page.
Mishaberach avoteinu mikor haberacha leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mikor haberacha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Cantor. You can take a bit of a break and wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. So I want to share a teaching with you tonight, and I will tell you at the outset, it's a little complicated. It has a few steps along the way, so you're going to have to stick with me, Neil. And just kidding. It comes from a really, really wonderful, brilliant teacher named Rabbi Dr. Aaron Leib Smokler. I'm not sure if anybody have heard of her. She is one of the leaders of Yeshivat Maharat, which if you've never heard of that, it wouldn't entirely surprise me, but you should know, is an incredible yeshiva that actually ordains female Orthodox rabbis. So if I'm not mistaken, I think Dr. Zierler got her smicha from there recently. A number of our professors at HUC who've taught there for many years who are now were Orthodox women, generally from this community in Riverdale, I think, and who had been studying and eventually reached this really somewhat unique position of being a female Orthodox rabbi. Now, that's a whole other conversation as to what that means and the complications of what that means in the Orthodox world, etc. But it's important to know that this is, again, a community that is really built from your sort of classic image of a modern Orthodox community. And some of the most brilliant Torah that I have heard in years has come out of this wonderful yeshiva, and Rabbi Dr. Smokler in particular. So she taught this a number of years ago about this week's Parsha, about Parshat Vayetze. And this Parsha focuses on a really key moment in the story of our patriarch Jacob. Just out of curiosity, anybody in the room know one of the seminal moments that takes place in this week's Parsha? I'll give you one word hint. There's a ladder involved. Okay, very good, right? June was right to it. Okay, very famous image, actually captured by most of the great Renaissance artists, this sort of image of Jacob falling asleep and the image of angels going up and down a ladder and its various meanings and things of that nature. We're not going to talk about angels going down ladders so much, but we are going to talk about Jacob's unique contribution to our sense of Jewish identity and self. And we'll get to what that means in a little bit. But first we have to start out, which we always do in Judaism, which is a question. Something that seems unusual in the text that the rabbis jump on. So I'm going to try to indicate wherever this classic text is when it's Rabbi Smokler's commentary, and then a few of my own words as well. So the challenge, at least in reading the text, occurs at the very beginning of the Parsha, and we're told, Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Harana. And Jacob left Beersheva, where he had been, and he went to Haran. Okay, seems simple enough. Okay, simple enough. To cut through what is probably hours of explanation in Midrash, let's just say that the rabbis don't see it as being quite so simple, and that in fact a lot of stuff happens between when he leaves Beersheba and where he arrives in Haran. Now it doesn't appear in the Torah, but it appears in this remarkable body of text that we call Midrash. And again, we're going to touch on a few of them, but a few of them that basically are so incorporated into our sense of Jacob's narrative that they're almost as if they're in the Torah itself. But I'm guessing that some of this Midrash is not going to be familiar to you, at least at the beginning. So we're told basically that on this journey, he arrives at, we're told in Hebrew, the word makom. Vayifka makom. Makom in its literal translation means a place, any place, okay, any place at all. And he gets to this place, Vayalen sham, ki vahashemesh vayikach ma'avnei hamakom, vayasem merashotav, vayishkav makom hahu. That he sets basically it's getting late, he puts a rock down for a pillow, and he falls asleep. And in this place, he has this famous dream. Now, the rabbis in the Talmud, and Rashi is the one who sort of quotes them, but ultimately going back to Masechet Brachot, they say that this word makom, that should just mean a place, doesn't mean a place. It's actually one of the words that we use to describe God. Now, my guess is that's a surprise to you. Who would think the word place and God are going to make sense? If anything, actually, an omnipresent God would seem to defy the concept of place, right? God is everywhere. You may have only heard this particular designation of God with a common phrase that you hear when going to visit a house of Shiva. Anybody know what you're supposed to say traditionally when you visit a house of Shiva? Hamakom yenachem etchem betoch sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you amongst the mourners of Zion and Israel. But instead of saying Yod He Vav He Adonai Hashem, any number of the other names of God, we get this very unusual usage of this word makom. And so while it is not frequently used, the rabbis understand that when the word appears in this kind of context, the thing that Jacob had arrived to was not a place, but ultimately to God, to visiting God in some form or the other. Now, the strangeness of this, okay, is that let's assume that that is the translation. Then presumably Jacob knows that he's interacting with God. It says in the text, Bamakom, it means God, therefore he should know. Except that a little bit later, we find out that Jacob awakes from his dream, and he says, surely Adonai is present in this makom, in this place, and yet, Anochi lo yadati, I didn't know. So the rabbis ask the question, well, if it says in this first text that Jacob meets God, okay, why is he then saying that God was in this place and I didn't know? Either he knows that God is there, or he doesn't know that God is there. It seems incongruous, it seems confusing, and yet, of course, the rabbis will say, nothing is confusing. Everything just needs to be explained. So what does Rabbi Smokler say? She says in notes, what a stunning and confusing admission of spiritual humility by what we consider a spiritual giant. Now, why does she say that Jacob is considered a spiritual giant? One little divergent explanation. We have 3 prayer services that we traditionally do as Jews every day: Shacharit, Mincha, and Aravit. The service we're doing now is which one? Mariv, Aravit, very good. According to tradition, each of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, introduce one of these services. Abraham introduces the early service because we're told repeatedly he gets up early in the morning as an early riser. Isaac gets the credit for Mincha because we're told in the afternoon he goes off lasuach basadeh, goes off sort of wandering, and we're told praying in the desert. And then, because of this experience that Yaakov has, that Jacob has, we attribute this evening service, the one we're doing right now, ultimately to Jacob and to this first experience. Okay, so what does she say, right? How strange it is that this spiritual giant, the creator of a whole series of prayers, would admit that they actually were in the presence of God and didn't know it. So Rabbi Smokler continues. She says, he had no awareness that the presence he presumably knew in Beersheba could be omnipresent. Okay, we're told earlier that, Jacob has some interaction with God. It shouldn't be a surprise. This same character who moments earlier composed prayers to address God is terribly shocked to discover a God who addresses him. How could we make sense of this self-contradicting consciousness? And what of God does Yaakov know, and what does he not discover? Does he now discover? And what is the relationship in the end, and this is the key, between prayers, dreams, exits, and awakenings? So now here's the core text. Believe it or not, that was all preamble. I told you it was going to take me a minute to get there. We got there. So I want to give you an introduction to a rabbi who I'm sure that you don't know. He's known as the Maor Vashemesh, and he is Kalonymus Kalman. It's not Shapiro, Epstein of Krakow. Believe it or not, there's more than one Kalonymus Kalman, and one of the great commentators of his era. And he points to a midrash, another midrash in Genesis Rabbah, that Jacob didn't just awake from his sleep. The Hebrew word for sleep in this case, mishnato, his resting. That's the normal translation, as Jacob gets up from his sleeping, and then he realizes and says out loud, I didn't know God was in this place. And here he plays on the word mishnato, which is the beauty of the Hebrew language, because this little root, shana, can actually mean lots of different things. It can mean sleep, but it also, in this case, can be referring to mishnayot, the study of Mishnah, or the study in general of Torah. And that, in fact, what the text is saying is that Jacob didn't get up from his sleep. He got up from his studies, from studying the Mishnah, which is, of course, an absurd thing because the Mishnah doesn't come until much later. But, that's midrash for you. But so here, again, seems like a small difference. Why is this important? This is where we're going to get to. From this, we learn, according to the Maor Vashemesh, that the essence of a person's worship is to come to perfect service of God and to grasp the meaning of God through both Torah and Tefillah. There cannot be one without the other, because, and forgive my, this is the translation of the word itself, an ignoramus does not become a pious chassid, and conversely, one who says there is nothing in the world for me except for Torah, in other words, somebody who's so focused myopically on Torah, in this case, he says, doesn't even have what they think they have. They don't even have Torah in their hand. It is true that by studying Torah for the sake of heaven and cleaving one's soul and one's very being to the letters of the Torah, a person can achieve great holiness. But a person can only truly come to love and understand and yearn for God through prayer and through the surrendering of the self that prayer entails. As we know from all of our holy books, our sages of blessed memory taught that when Jacob had his dream at Beit El, what we're describing here in this week's Parsha, he established the evening prayer, Aravit. Until this point, Jacob had not known the secret of prayer. God did not reveal himself to Jacob until he became aware of its tremendous power. So here we have to explain a little bit. There is another midrash, believe it or not, that both Isaac and Jacob, as I said, that period of time that seems to be, he just went from Beersheba to Haran, turns out actually was a 14-year study tour to a mystical, magical yeshiva, again, a word that didn't exist really until much later, that was run by Shem and his grandson Ever, who are the descendants of Noah. Okay, again, this is all complex. You just need to know that there is a tradition that says that Jacob actually was literally studying for 14 years in yeshiva. So why is the change of word from his rising from his sleep to rising from his studies? Why is it relevant here? And what is the Maor V'Shemesh saying? He's saying that basically for those 14 years up until this point, Jacob was the furthest thing from a master of prayer, or what we would call today spirituality. And in fact, what he was a master of was study. That he had spent all this time basically in your mind picturing a yeshiva bacher sitting there with his nose in a Talmud all day long, every single day, and never really having anything resembling a prayerful experience, experience where he can define and describe having an interaction with God. And it's only when he gets up from his studies, when he leaves that behind, that he has this mystical, magical, spiritual experience. And this, says the Maor V'Shemesh, is the meaning of the Midrash that says that Jacob awoke from his Mishnayot. That is, he awoke from his study of Torah. Where did I lose it? Sorry, that's why you don't double-side pages, right? For he had been studying for 14 years in the yeshiva of Shem and Eber, between his exit from Beersheba and his journey to Haran. And upon awakening, he realized that Torah alone would not bring him to a full awareness of God. And Jacob said, at that point, surely Adonai is present here, meaning through prayer. He was better able to understand God than he ever could have through Torah alone. And when he says, I did not know it, he means that I didn't know the tremendous power of prayer, which enables us to come to know God in a full fervor and brings us, therefore, to the gates of heaven. So what does Rabbi Smokler say of all this? She says that Yaakov's great awakening, Vayikatz Mishnato, was not from sleep alone, but from the dulled consciousness born of this Mishnato, of his intense study of Mishnah, or Torah more broadly. 14 years of learning in the yeshiva of Shem and Ever had grounded him in the Word of God, and it had availed him to knowledge of holiness, but it had failed to give him God, and it had failed to give him direct experience of holiness. He was steeped in Torah, but tefillah, prayerful, passionate, palpable contact with the divine was unknown to him. Love, fear, yearning had all been quieted by the search for understanding. And this gaping hole in his religious experience, this paradoxical eclipse of God by virtue of his exclusive focus on the God idea, was what Yaakov came to understand in our parsha. Vayitze Yaakov, Yaakov left the comfortable yet constraining walls of his Beit Midrash, and only then, Vayifka b'makom, only then could he actually directly encounter the divine. And when he says out loud, surely Adonai is present in this place, and I did not know, says Rabbi Smokler, this is the shock of someone who thought he knew God intimately through his studies, only to discover that he is actually meeting God for the first time in that field, in that space. And what emerges from this, she says, this new heightened spiritual awareness, is Tfilat Aravit, this evening prayer, this prayer of the night, chosen by the heart, Reshut, not legislated by the books, that prayer that embodies mystery and uncertainty and surprise. It's the prayer of one whom meets God in unexpected places and declares with awe the end of the sentence, Manora hamakom hazeh, how wondrous is this place, this makom of God. And she closes, this interpretation of Yaakov's spiritual awakening issues both a deep challenge and an invitation. It forces us to contend with the paradoxical truth that sometimes thinking too much about God can get in the way of having a relationship with God. That Torah can actually be an obstacle to tefillah. Really radical statement. And it charges us to find a way to pray, to render God intensely real. Awakening to the divine, it turns out, sometimes requires going to sleep a bit, quieting our vigilant minds so that our hearts might open to a new and surprising dream. Now, I decided to teach this evening on a personal level, partially grown actually out of the experience last night of helping to teach, along with Leah Oppenheimer, our Hebrew School Director Emeritus, about the intersection between the science and the Torah of raising children. And as I mentioned at the outset, with my son turning 2 today, and having to spend really the last week deeply immersed in texts, Jewish texts on parenting, and how we think about parenting. And one of the things we came to in the discussion last night was a realization that for us as Jews, certainly education is primary, certainly our concept of learning Torah and teaching Torah, all of these things are deeply embedded in us. But if we only focus on the technical part of it, right, do this, don't do that, show up here, don't show up here, we miss another very key part, which is who we are. and what our identity is. And one of our identities as Jews is this story of Yaakov, this story of what we would call by modern terms spirituality, an encounter with God in various kinds of ways. And I've acknowledged in my own personal rabbinate that one of my struggles, I think, from the Bima a lot of times is talking about God, talking about spirituality. I come from a Litvak background, as I've told you. I'm much more comfortable in the rational world, the real world, all these kinds of things. And yet as I grow older, and as I think about my children in particular, and what my responsibility and my wife's responsibility is to them as teachers, is to ask the question of what are we teaching them? Yes, she's learning all the wonderful letters, and my son's learning all the wonderful letters and numbers and all the things they need to learn and all the stuff we're teaching them in Hebrew school. But in the end, the real struggle a lot of times is trying to teach a child what is spirituality, what is a sense of a relationship with God look like? How does that feel? And when we go back to our ancestors, a lot of times we get caught up in all the other sort of parts of their story and miss some of the deepest teachings. And I think that Rabbi Smokler takes from this really seemingly irrelevant verse at the beginning of the Parsha about him leaving one place and going to another, and draws out this whole unbelievable midrash that tells us and instructs us that Jacob teaches us many things, but one of his greatest gifts to us as his progeny, as his followers, as his inheritors, is that we need to understand that God will appear, but it's not going to be just because we, have some mystical experience or have a vision of angels going up and down on a ladder. That we have to strike a balance between our knowledge and our sort of technical skill and our davening skills and all those kinds of things, but also make space to open our hearts for the real raw and vulnerable and beautiful experience that Jacob has in this first example of the evening prayer, and how we each and every night or each and every Friday night as a community, that we have this opportunity to reenact this experience. And I think we just have to turn ourselves a little bit away from focusing almost exclusively on which prayer are we on, what page are we on, what order are we going in, and focus a little bit more on the kavanah piece of it, right? Where is our heart right now? Where is God to us right now? Where are we in the conversation? And if it's not where we want it to be, what are we going to do to give ourselves some space for that kind of spiritual growth? And I hope, as I said, on a personal level, that at some point, my children will have that opportunity to start to experience it in their own way. And it's really one of the great gifts that we choose to give to each other, and in particular to give to the next generation. So I wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Again, if you don't know Dr. Rabbi Aaron Leib Smokler, beautiful Torah, beautiful teacher, just all around wonderful thing. And again, if you don't know about Yeshivat Maharat, look it up when you get home. It's a really wonderful place with, again, a lot of great Torah to learn from really a lot of incredibly brilliant voices. So again, I'll wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, and we'll welcome Cantor Kevin back to the Bima, and we'll rise in body or spirit as we turn to page 586 at the bottom of the page. Again, page 586, and we'll rise in body or spirit for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach Adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 591. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. We'll turn now to page 596, and we'll read together at the very top of the page, again, page 596, in advance of the Mourner's Kaddish. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of our heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear, but if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction, he learned the law of God, and in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in the presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. And thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as in their higher moments they themselves wish to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts. They are an abiding blessing. I'll invite those in mourning and those observing yahrzeit to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated. We think of those who have passed in our community in recent months. Martin Blake, Lynn Cowan, Faith Diskin, Arlene Eber, Jay Fagan, Chaim Bear Greenwald, Jane Beard Cass, Gertrude Katz, Buddy Kossoff, Helene Krotman, Emmanuel Kiprios, David Lieberman, Sandra Luongo, Norma Polsek, Lillian Schwartz, David Senf, Anita Sheldon, Alan Silver, Sandy Slip, Larry Wartor, Peter Weinstein, Rita Weitzman, Matthew Adam Zimmerman, and Yael Zordar. We also mark the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Harold Adler, Elida Appel, Marion Bach, Joan Barron, Felix Berg, Louis Bernstein, Louis Braz, Shirley Cohen, Sylvia Dornfeld, Henry Gross, Jeannie Katz, Leo Klopman, David Levine, Joshua Levine, Rachel Lustig, Alvin Rossick, Ruth Schatz, Philip Siegel, Bernard Silberg, Max Waldman, Yuda Waldman, Rebecca Wiener, and Alan York. Is anyone else with us this evening saying Kaddish for anyone we didn't mention? If it's your custom, I'll invite you to join the mourners in rising, either in body or in spirit, and I'll invite the mourners to join with me on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. B'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated. And again, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And for those that are in the room with us, if you hear a sort of loud-ish squeaky noise, it's not our speakers, it's the radiator heat, so don't worry. It's just keeping us warm. So a few important announcements. First is to join us for Shabbat services tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. If you want to join in person, again, we're in the chapel here at the Old Whalers Church, so you're going to come in through the side entrance. Or, of course, you can join us on Zoom, our website, YouTube channel, or Facebook. And, of course, to join at 12 o'clock for Torah study using the Torah, a Women's Commentary. Again, that's 12 o'clock on Zoom. A few things to note coming up this week. Niddah Mitzvah will be meeting at 11:30. Yes? Okay. Contact Andrea if you'd like to know more. My class on Heschel and the Prophets will meet at 12 o'clock on Zoom. Hebrew School is at 3:30. We have a Family B'nai Mitzvah program at 5 o'clock, and then also the 5 o'clock Social Justice Committee virtual meeting. Correct, Ron? This week. Good. Hebrew School is at 3:30 on Wednesday. And a reminder that Thursday is virtual Hanukkah Trivia Night. That's a lot of things all in one sentence. Virtual Hanukkah Trivia Night, beginning at 7 o'clock. It's always a good time. We always have a really great time with Trivia Night. And Diane, who is one of our great Hebrew School teachers, has got some fun things planned for us. And I hope that you'll join us again, 7 o'clock on Thursday. All are welcome. Also, a reminder, my Friday class, A Journey to the Heart of the Siddur, will be on Friday at 9:15. Again, all are welcome to join. It doesn't matter that we've been going for a while. Jump in anywhere along the way. As I mentioned last night, we had our wonderful opportunity to learn with Leah Oppenheimer in our series of events on scientists and synagogues here in Sag Harbor. And our next discussion is one apropos of conversations around dreams, featuring our beloved Dr. Brad Tepper. Bensi Tepper, as we know him, beloved board member and just a wonderful friend of our community. He's also a remarkable psychiatrist and has a lot to say on the subject. He's also a brilliant Torah scholar. So he and I are going to engage in some interesting conversation around dream interpretation, some of the science of dreaming, and of course pulling from some of the unique perspectives that Judaism has on the power of dreams, and to give us insight into who we are. A reminder also for those that are still interested in signing up, we have a little bit more than a week to sign up and put your deposits in for our civil rights trip to the South. This is, again, a wonderful opportunity. This is the end of March, beginning of April, if I remember correctly. I don't have the dates in front of me. I think we've already hit the necessary threshold. I think we are at 20 already, which is a really great sign. So we've done that part. Now we just want to add more to the bus. And as I said, this is really a wonderful and unique opportunity to learn a great deal about the experience, both past and present, of the fight for civil rights in this country, and in particular in the South. So please let us know if you have any questions. If you're not sure what I'm even talking about, please do let me know after the service. I'll be happy to contact you and to discuss it further. And a great thank you to our Social Justice Committee for all the work they're doing and helping not just to move us, but to help us to think a little bit differently about the world. Just a reminder, as Hanukkah is upcoming, we're going to have on Friday, December 16th, a latke dinner for our Hebrew school students before services. And then at the beginning of services, they're going to come up, thanks very much to the help of Cantor Kevin, who's been teaching them on Mondays, to sing some Hanukkah songs for us here. So come, especially on that Friday night, if you're comfortable coming in person, that's a great night to come and to see some of our littlest and most adorable, and some slightly older and still adorable kids in the Hebrew school. So we thank you, Cantor Kevin, for your hard work on that. Again, that's going to be Friday, December 16th. And also a reminder, of course, that on December 18th, we will begin the holiday together, as we have for many years at the Windmill here in Sag Harbor. I'm very grateful to the Agosi family, as always, for not just helping us to put the menorah up and really to make our presence known in Sag Harbor, but also to provide our wonderful hot chocolate and sufganiyot so that we can all enjoy it. And even in the COVID years, I think it's been one of the most sort of wonderful highlights of the year, in seeing so many people show up on the wharf. And especially these days, we don't need to even say it, right? What it means to demonstrate publicly, right? Pirsum Hanes, publicizing the miracle, is the core idea in Hanukkah. The miracle for us in this day and age is not as much about the candles lasting, but that we're here. And we're not just here, that we are really here, that we are a part of this community, that we are part of every community that we belong in, and that we are proud to be Jews, not just in our synagogues, not just in our homes, but in the streets, along with our brothers and sisters of other faiths. So all the more reason this year in particular, we want to have a really big turnout, and that'll be at 6 o'clock at the Windmill here in Sag Harbor, and we'll have all sorts of stuff going on for that as well, and really looking forward to that. And other things in December, and some great stuff we're planning for January, so check our website, YouTube, all that good stuff. And things are working. I'll just give our weekly update on the building. Neil and I were over there twice last week. We got sheetrock up. We've got things resembling walls. It's very exciting.
We had a meeting late today on Monday over at the synagogue, and we went over a listing of items that we had not included in our video.
Oh, well, that's...
So that increased the total.
okay. Well, well...
This is shocking.
Yes.
There's 100 people that have not joined the capital campaign, and we need everyone.
Well, I'm going to translate as much of that because I'm not sure anybody on the camera actually heard what you just said. But let's just say, if you haven't yet found a way to connect to our wonderful building project, and you'd like to, Neil would love to have a conversation with you and tell you about all the wonderful opportunities to do just that. But certainly, our temple exists because of our people. So any way that you can contribute is always appreciated. And Neil, we thank you for all your hard work, as it were. Yeah, good. Well, that's good, and we're very excited about that. So that's it for me. Cantor, anything to add? Okay.
You covered it.
We got something to close with, something to sing?
Not particularly. Did you have
Okay.
any thoughts?
So yeah, let's do Shalom Aleichem. I think this is a Shalom
Great.
Aleichem kind of night. So if you came with a loved one and you feel comfortable, you're welcome to put an arm around, and we'll welcome those at home to really focus on, again, the peace that Shabbat brings, especially amongst the tumult of the world. We can appreciate it all the more. Again, page 627. 627. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Yon, Mi Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, kadosh baruch hu. Tzedchem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We'll rise for Kiddush on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam bohorei peri agafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav beratzavanu v'shabahat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikraei kodesh Zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, ve'shabat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. And we'll do a motzi. And just to ask of our friends who are with us here tonight, if you can just make sure to bring your Sidurim, your prayer books back to Josie on your way out, and she'll trade you for a delicious challah and some ragalach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Good Shabbos. You know what we should have closed with?
What's that?
Some Irving Berlin, I think, given the Kuchman around. Would have been good. All right. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Take care. And turn these guys on. All right. Yes, that's exactly. There you go. That would have been truly a remarkable. You know, I like that. That's good. Very, very good. Okay, so.